Friday at 3:47 p.m., President Trump calls Anthropic's radical left nut jobs on Truth Social. An hour later, Hegseth designates them a supply chain risk, and that same evening, Sam Altman announces that OpenAI has reached its own Pentagon deal. Then his inbox explodes. His alignment team calls the safeguards window dressings, and 900 engineers sign an open letter. Chalk appears on the sidewalk outside of his office saying, Is it time to quit? By Monday, he's rewriting the contract. That's the story. We reported on this last week about the feud between Anthropic and the federal government. Anthropic got blacklisted, and I talked about what it means for your architecture decisions. Today's the sequel. I knew Monday was going to be interesting. Today's even more. We're looking at it from three angles: the deal OpenAI actually signed, the employee revolt that broke it, and Planter's CEO threatening to nationalize anyone who doesn't comply. And I have a take that neither side wants to hear. Hello, everybody. Welcome live from New Jersey. This is Engineer in the Loop. My name is RJ Robinson. I'm a staff engineer. I'm going to walk you through the 72-hour timeline. We got a lot to get into. So, at the Friday All Hands, Sam Altman told employees that the government would let OpenAI build its own safety stack, a layered system of technical and human controls, and that if the model refused a task, that the Pentagon would not force the model to continue. OpenAI accepted it for all lawful purposes framework that Anthropic spent months refusing, but added cloud-only deployment, an OpenAI controlled safety stack, and cleared engineers forwardly deployed for. So this is a crazy story and how this is evolving, right? And I told you guys to watch for this. Anthropic lost a $200 million contract. And OpenAI, and like I said, like the Maven project, somebody was going to pick it up. OpenAI was like, hey, I like money. So they before the Friday deadline, right, last week, 900 employees across OpenAI and Google had already signed an open letter, and the letter said that they're trying to divide each company with fear that the other will give in. And that strategy only works if none of us know where the others stand. Well, of the named employees, including Bose and William Feng, the letter signed by external tech leaders. And basically, we're saying, we don't like this. This is ridiculous. They're pitting us against each other. Monday morning, Altman called Amel at the Pentagon, Amel Michael, that's the CTO of the Pentagon, to rework the deal because everyone was upset. And new language explicitly states that AI systems should not be intentionally used for domestic surveillance of U.S. persons. It now covers commercially acquired data like cell phone records and fitness apps, and the original deal only referenced private information. Intelligence agencies, including the NSA, are now explicitly excluded. That is, we start looking at these stories, ads, and when we start looking at everything that Anthropic feared, now it's all coming true, which is crazy. Another thing that's crazy that doesn't seem to be making its rounds is that, well, it does seem to be making its rounds, but the revised contract contains protections that literally didn't exist 72 hours earlier, right? So we're going to get into that. Now, in the new contract, there's explicit Fourth Amendment language. I called this out last week too, right? Explicitly called out Fourth Amendment language, a prohibition on commercially acquired data sets where intelligence agencies are carved out entirely, and OpenAI is retaining full discretion over its safety stack. None of this existed in Friday's deal. This is all brand new, and this basically saying, hey, we're now drawing a line in the sand. I guess the pressure from 900 employees was enough. So engineers are forced to make these changes by making the cost of ignoring them higher, which is basically a walkout. It's like malicious compliance, right? Like, do what I say or else everyone's leaving, which is a really Interesting position to be putting hat, especially in an age where these AI companies are saying software engineering is going bye-bye, right? Like nobody's going to need software engineers anymore. And like all that hype around these AI companies selling this idea that they're not going to need AI engineers anymore or whatnot. And it turns out, I guess they do still have some pull. No regulator, no congressional hearing, and no contract negotiation achieved what 900 engineers did in a weekend with an open letter and a hashtag. 295% day over day spike in ChatGPT uninstalls. That's definitely an eye opener. So 700,000 quit GPT pledges on online, basically saying Claude hit #1 in the App Store, Anthropic free signups tripled, and the market spoke in 48 hours. That's pretty powerful. I even have comments in some of my videos where people are saying, "Yeah, we canceled our OpenAI over this," and that's an interesting position to take. Um, it's a strong position, and I think that every one of the protections that that OpenAI or Anthropic originally and now OpenAI relies on is the government choosing to follow language that's in a contract, but there has to be an enforcement mechanism, right? And it's going to get a little crazy. So just stay tuned, right? So MIT, where's this one? So Altman says that in defense of the deal, and sloppy, and he faced a lot of backlash. The opposite side of this is that the revised contract still allows all lawful purposes at the baseline. Someone at George Washington University Law reviewed the published excerpt and concluded it does not give OpenAI freestanding right to prohibit otherwise lawful government use. It simply says that the Pentagon can't break any laws that already exist. And surveillance programs Snowden exposed have been deemed illegal by internal agencies for years, which is also scary. These tools are getting really crazy, and now that they're getting super embedded with the government, we're going to be testing the limits of our Constitution. Some of it may be legal, some may be illegal, and it's going to be really hard to get all of the angles of what is required and what's not required. Employees want better language on paper, whether it's first contract with a classified use case nobody outside of a skiff will ever see, is a different problem entirely, right? So on paper, what I'm saying here is that, yeah, it looks good, and this is, the contract and the legalese is all there. However, once you get into a skiff, there's no, like, that is a classified room. You don't get to even bring in your cell phones. There's no AirPods in there. So what happens in that room stays in that room, and it's deemed classified, which means that arguably they could do whatever they wanted in the skiff. And it's going to see how this tests our ability to use and adapt to technology on the fly. The exact pattern where engineers revolt, the company retreats, and the work just moves somewhere with less oversight, a skiff. This has played out many times before. So again, I feel like this is the third time I've talked about the Google Maven project. So 4,000 employees signed a petition opposing the Pentagon's AI drone program in 2018. Now, I'm not going to beat this up. We already went over it. But that's a similar thing, is like Google pulled out, Planter slid right in. Speaking of Planter, so there was an interesting tweet this weekend, and I thought I had one. There's an interesting tweet this weekend. Oh, I do have a card for it. Hey, I do have a card for it. Let's check it out. R word in an interview, he was basically saying you can't fight the government on this, because then the government will just take the company. Like when you're at war or you're using technology in a warful capacity, warful, I don't know if that's a word, and the government deems that it's necessary, then they can use specific Defense Power Act to basically take the technology. I hope it doesn't come to that. I don't know if dropping the R word, calling people that in public is really a good look for anybody. But, you know, hey, listen, you got to make your own decisions there. So we're going to close it out here. Let's see what's happening on social. Dean Ball called Anthropic aside, Dean Ball, I can speak today. Dean Ball called the Anthropic supply chain designation attempted corporate murder. It feels like it backfired. Says that it strikes at the core principle of the American Republic, private property. Yeah, I could see that argument, but I don't know. I don't know all of the facts from the inside, so I can't see that part of it, right? Miles Burdenage says OAI employees, different assumption should be that OpenAI caved and framed it as not caving, and then screwed Anthropic while framing it as helping them. So I said that last episode too, where the left hand is saying one thing out loud but doing something with the right hand. It's an interesting position. These it's like they're all trying to play nice, but then they're all trying to get those government dollars. All right, so what can you guys do? Well, today, see if your company's a DoD contractor or subcontractor, because the supply chain designation of Anthropic affects you. Search procurement docs. This week, if Claude is in any federal adjacent workflow, build a provider abstraction. And then watch for more supply chain risk designations. They're going to get formally implemented soon. The federal government has 6 months to offboard. But there's a domino that's reshaping AI purchasing in America right now. Here's what leaves us. Here's where that leaves us. The government can blacklist a company overnight. It took 900 engineers and 72 hours to rewrite the deal, and that's only a safety mechanism. That's the only safety mechanism that actually works, is if they say, hey, either do this or we walk. If you think the employee revolt changed everything or nothing, I want to know. Hit it in the comments. Like, subscribe. Oh, I forgot this one. I'm trying to make this show a little bit more professional. But like I said, tomorrow I'm going to dig into some more lawfare analysis of whether the Defense Production Act actually forced an AI company to strip the safety guardrails, because I don't legal answer is anything each side expects, and I'm going to try to dig into that. If you're a lawyer and you want to talk about this with me, yo, hit me up. I'd love to do that. All right, that's what I got. Thanks, guys.